Hey, good evening, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, our purchase of a Raptor certainly sparked off a lot of discussion about a lot of different things. Obviously there is well, if you're American it's obvious, there is always the competition between people who like the Chevrolet or Chevy and people who like the Ford. And of course anybody who doesn't like the Ford has got his own little rhymes, like found at the roadside dead, and all stuff like that. And so we won't get in the middle of that, because that seems to be a never-ending thing. It's like if you're a Harley Davidson rider, that's your religion. I know a man who collects both Harley Davidsons and BMWs, and his judgment on it was that a BMW is for riding from place to place, and a Harley Davidson is for riding from bar to bar, and we won't get in the middle of that one either. But apart from the fact that we're not going to talk about well, I'm not going to talk about the car itself, because that's several other videos which I can see would come from doing that, from the owner's novice driver. I say novice because although I have been driving for many years, I don't know everything about cars. And when I look at these reviews that are done, particularly one that was done by a young woman in, I think, Australia, and she looks part Filipino, or certainly she is Asian or part Asian. Very attractive lady and incredibly knowledgeable about cars. And I'm amazed at how much people do know. They know about how many or they know all about the what we in the UK call brake horsepower, but in America they call that horsepower. Brake horsepower, I always thought, was the amount of power that's generated to the back wheels. But without getting too technical on that, I just wanted to talk about that, what seems to be a never-ending discussion on, and it obviously gets to be quite, what can we say, quite critical. Each party is quite critical of the other. That the person who wrote to me and said, yes, I'm very grateful to Ford, or I'm paraphrasing now, but yes, he loved Ford because he was a mechanic at the Ford factory, where Ford cars are always being brought back, and he gets to repair them, and he makes a very good living. My friend Kerry, who builds cars, says bullcrap. We won't go into that either. But so if you've got a car that is ailing and breaks down, should you get rid of it? Should you repair it, make it roadworthy and get rid of it if it keeps breaking down? Or should you go out and buy another vehicle? Now, what we did was, we had been saving our pennies for a number of years, and we eventually went out, and as you probably know, we bought a new truck. A new truck that is four-wheel drive, is something derived, I think it's been back engineered from a UFO that was dropped down on Area 41, is how it seems to me, because we've been driving a very painfully simple little truck in what we call the Little Red. It's a 3-cylinder truck capable of I think carrying 650 pounds, which we've carried 20 kids in before now. Now that's what we've been used to. It's a gas engine. It's obviously it has a carburetor. There's no such thing as fuel injection. Come on, that's compared to the idea of having fuel injection in the engine, our little truck is a dinosaur. Well, by the way, we can't get rid of it. Beth will not hear of getting rid of it because it's part of our history together of meeting and struggling, and that was all that we could afford. And then we went out and we bought a Ford Raptor. Well, yes, straight away. Now, there's all kinds of funny little things that go with buying anything. I always talk about the guy, a comedian who was in the UK. His name was Al Reed, for those of you who may be as old as I am, or even older. Could it be? He used to make his comic sketches by introducing the know-it-all, and the know-it-all was the one who he didn't. Something special about a know-it-all. A know-it-all is not there to educate you. A know-it-all is there to put you through a ritual humiliation. He's the one. He doesn't come along and say, Terence, I think it would be better if you jacked the car up before you tried to take the wheel off. He said, oh my God, you're not going to do that, are you? Fred he doesn't know one wheel he doesn't know one end of the truck from another. What you talking about? Ritual humiliation. He's not there to educate you. He's not there to help you. He's there to put you down. And we all have those. And we had a couple. Now we did have someone who made a very good argument for the idea that the car companies have for the longest time warned you, in fact have actually put the fear of God in you about expensive repairs that may come up in the future. And then what will you do? You'll never be able to afford it. Here, have this expensive insurance, or buy a new car. Don't do any repairs, buy a new car. The arguments go back and forth. Should you repair or should you buy new? And the thing that you should be looking at is the payments that you would have to make. Sorry, ordinary life is going on around me while I try to do this video, so you'll hear people talking. That's our simple life. Should you make a payment of, I don't know, in the case of buying a Raptor, which is what we bought, we would have, well, let me see, we got the deal on something. We were told what the deal would be on something like the Hilux, which the Hilux was, I think, 1.7, or depending on which model you got, 1.7 or some 1.8 million, and you would make a down payment of 100,000, and you would then be facing 3 years payment, so 38,000. So someone then said, well, buying a new car, it's going to depreciate faster than you can make the payments, so you can't pay it off because it's going to depreciate. Well, have you forgotten that there's a huge government tax that makes that the impossibility? So in other words, you get in the car and you turn the key, and you turn the key in the name of yourself, and you've lost, I don't know, I don't even want to think about how much tax is now on a car. So you have a car industry that needs to sell cars, and it needs to sell new cars. It's not in the business of selling used cars. Is it going to persuade you to buy a new car? That's a difficult one. Would they say, we've got a lot of new cars here, would you like to buy one? I think that they probably are. Is it a conspiracy? No, I don't think so, because the old car that you're driving right now and lovingly repairing every week used to be a new car, and the fact that it's no longer a new car is part of the reason why it's breaking down. Because as somebody else who in a moment of extreme sanity suggested that machinery wears out and needs to be repaired. Now, a lot of people have been watching us for quite a while, and they've been seeing me trying to kill the vehicles that we have by driving them up and down that 2-mile stretch of mechanical torture. Vehicles break down. They break down because they are meant to do a certain workload. And all of the vehicles that we've had, with the exception, I can tell you, of the new one that we've just got now, that's not going to be beaten into the ground mercilessly because we don't want it to. So what we're going to do is we're going to meet the two opponents of repair it, buy new, and we're going to meet them in the middle. We bought new, and we're going to continue to repair the ones that we are going to continue to brutalize. How's that for a compromise? So our beautiful Raptor, and it is a thing of beauty and joy for us, is going to be kept in as pristine condition as we possibly can. And that is ensured by the fact that along with the purchase is a 3-year warranty or 100,000 kilometers. 100,000 kilometers or 3 years. And when you have that, you have rules that you must keep. And one is that it must go back to the factory, and you pay to have it serviced, and they check it and they make sure that everything is working right. This is if you are totally convinced that there is no conspiracy to empty your bank account. Well, they've already done that, haven't they? Because we paid cash. Well, you take it back and they keep it running, and that costs you money. Why can't they do it for nothing? After all, they're guilty of a conspiracy, aren't they? Not really. They're in, and this is a blinding revelation, if I may give it to you. The car companies are in business, and they have to sell a number of cars. Now, without going into the whole capitalistic way of life and how some people have a new car every year and others make a car last for 30 years. I have a Volkswagen which is still running on the same engine, just about. It's being repaired at the moment to get it back on the road, and it's, I think, in the 1970s. Just imagine that. It's a car that's all those years old and it still runs. Amazing. See, so the opponents or the proponents of repair the car, don't buy new, well, they would be correct on that, wouldn't they? Because there's this old jalopy and it's had money spent on it, and now actually before I parked it, it did look like a thing of beauty, a thing of classic beauty, that is. But now people have been jumping on the roof and on the hood, or the bonnet if you're from the UK, and it's a little bit dented, and that's not just its pride. So that's actually going to be repaired, and we'll just use it to have fun. Now, one of the reasons that the logical thinking people who put forward the argument about car manufacturers are putting one over on us by selling us insurance for doing repairs and all of this, they seem to miss out on one thing. I look at the truck that we've bought, and quite apart from all of the amazing, absolutely amazing, incredible things that it will do, like backing up and cameras for backing up and warnings for going forward and doing all of this.
We're gonna eat.
We're gonna eat?
Yeah,
Okay.
just finish it.
Ordinary life is taking over. But apart from all of those things, I actually wanted it. And I used to sell cars for a brief time in Australia. I went and lived in Australia, and I worked with Brian Burt Ford, and I used to sell cars. And in the sales training which we used to get, they used to put forward that no one needs that very, very high-tech new car. They don't need it. They want it. And that's something that people who are so cold-blooded about cars will never understand. When you look at a car that fires your imagination and your sense of wanting, that's exactly what happens. You become passionate about owning that vehicle. It may be a dream to have a vehicle that is four-wheel drive and will go over every little bit of terrain that you can pull up, and you want that so badly. It's hiked and got fat tires and it's got all of that stuff, and you live in the city centre and never drive further than the local park. You want it. You don't need it. You want it. So yes, sometimes you can keep repairing something if the repairs are small and are not time consuming, which if you're in the Philippines, that the time that it takes to get something repaired is a whole other subject. You will have to get the spare part if it's not easy to find, and you may have to take a bus and sit on it for 3 hours going to Tagbilaran in order to find a shop that will give you that part. And if it's something like an axle, you'll be carrying that in a bag right on the bus. You got your axle and you sit in the back and you sit there with your bag, and then you put it into a tricycle and you go to Beale and you plonk it down on the counter, and they will do their best to find something that is exactly the same. Now, that means a lot of time to have every repair done, and when you factor that into repairing, then having a monthly payment or having plunked down most of your life savings makes sense. Well, I gotta go to dinner now. That's real life, and I thank you for listening. Bye for now. This is a foreigner in the Philippines.